Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. Today I'm going to talk about a subject related to the UFO phenomenon that, for the most part, it seems to be an afterthought in a lot of cases, a lot of various cases involving UFO encounters. And the afterthought is basically the reaction of animals to UFOs. There's been a lot of different cases documented throughout the years, probably in the thousands, where there's been strange reactions from animals when UFOs show up. And I'm bringing this up because recently I did a podcast, and this was, I guess would have been a couple of weeks ago, where I talked about there was a case in Australia that happened in February of 1980, and it involved a UFO being seen in a tree, breaking branches, and then it just disappeared. It took off. When I was talking about this story, because I thought it was interesting, the idea that a UFO was in a tree, but the afterthought of the entire case involved the reaction of two dogs, particularly a Great Dane dog that was usually fearless, but when this UFO showed up, it was scared out of its mind and actually wouldn't even go near the tree for like weeks afterward. And I'm just going to give a quick rehash of this story. This happened in February of 1980 in Australia, and there was a guy, a ranch hand, a young guy, 21 years old, Daryl Brown. He was working at this horse ranch called Glenalta Stud, and he was going to retire for the night and watch TV, and he heard these dogs outside start barking their heads off, and when he opened the door, they came rushing in the house. And one of these dogs, a Great Dane, was usually fearless, and all of a sudden it's scared out of its gourd. And here's from an article from the Australian Post from March of 1980. It says he said he heard the dogs barking and they were howling like he never heard them howl before. Basically, it says here it was about 9:45 on Thursday night. Daryl said, I was lying on bed in one of the second-story rooms watching television with the children when the two dogs outside started to howl in a quite eerie fashion. It was a sound I had never heard from them before. Less than a minute later, there was a tremendous crashing noise, and I thought a tree had fallen on the house. This seemed rather strange as there was no wind that night. I raced to the window and looked out, but could see nothing in the darkness. Accompanied by the kids and with a torch in hand, I went downstairs to see what had happened. As soon as I opened the door, the dogs raced inside and sat down, shivering and shaking. One of the dogs is a huge Great Dane that is not easily intimidated. And there were other animal effects. The object then later disappeared. I'm not going to get into this entire story again because I did talk about it extensively in that previous podcast. And there was another interesting aspect. Some of the horses, the manure, the color of the manure changed for the horses. It says here, there were a few other interesting occurrences that seemed to add to the mystery. All of the horses' manure in the stable the following morning was an unusual black color. It is always golden brown. And also, one of the rugs on a horse in the paddock had been unbuckled and placed by the gate by someone or something. So I thought that was really interesting. After I did that podcast, I was thinking about the effects on animals, and that's something I wanted to focus on. And when I started doing some research on it, I really didn't find that much. I went online and there was not much on there about just that focused on animals. Now, there have been different articles published in different kinds of UFO periodicals throughout the years, but there really isn't any book out there except one that I found by Linda Zimmerman, and this was published in 2021 called Animal Reactions to UFOs. And this book is really good. This is exactly what I was trying, the kind of information I was looking for after I did that episode, and so I was glad that I ordered it actually that same day, and I've been reading through this book, and it's very interesting. Now, this Linda Zimmerman actually points out that the reason she put this book together because she feels the same way, that there's just not a lot of scientific study into how animals react to UFOs, and this is something that she thinks that basically she comes to the conclusion that there needs to be more scientists looking into this, because this is, animals don't lie. Animals aren't capable of pulling off hoaxes. I mean, if something shows up like a UFO, UFO and an animal is extremely scared, that means there's actually something happening. There is a real event. The animal's not going to overreact or act strangely because of nothing or things that it's used to. And that's what I find this really interesting. Now, I just want to give you a little taste of this book. She actually starts off with a case that actually happened in Iowa, Muscatine, Iowa, back in 1981, in July of 1981. And it involved, I'm just going to read a little section from this first part of her book. It says, Al Wagner, a 34-year-old toll taker at the Norbert F. Beckley Bridge across the Mississippi River in Muscatine, Iowa, spent long hours on the night shift in his little toll booth. To help pass the time, he would bring carrots to feed the local wild rabbits. Even though he did this every night, the skittish rabbits would run off if he tried to get too close. However, in the early morning hours of July 22nd, 1981, at 3:10 a.m., something was clearly very wrong. The rabbits didn't move as he approached. Fearing they might all be dead, Wagner went right over to the 6 rabbits that were stretched out on the concrete, their front and back legs sticking out, completely unresponsive and not moving a muscle, as if they were paralyzed. Trying to comprehend what was happening, he suddenly noticed a light on the Illinois side of the bridge. It was an egg-shaped craft with an orange glow about 30 feet wide and 25 feet tall. As it moved toward the bridge and toward Wagner, a yellow light turned on inside the craft. At first, at an altitude of about 350 feet, it moved in an odd step-like pattern of forward, then up, forward, then up, until it was high enough to clear the top of the bridge by no more than about 10 feet. Descending toward the water, the strange craft then veered off to the west and disappeared. As it began to move away, Wagner noticed that the yellow light went off. He also noticed that what he described as a whizzing sound. The entire sighting lasted several minutes. And here was a direct comment that he told the Quad City Times newspaper after the event. He says, I don't even believe in UFOs, but I saw something that night that I've never seen before. Wagner had also never seen the rabbits act that way before. After the craft moved off, the rabbits appeared to suddenly revive, and they jumped up and scurried off, however, without eating their beloved carrots. That's just a little taste of this book I wanted to share. I highly recommend it if you're interested in this topic of animals' reactions to UFOs. This is great stuff, and I'll talk about this a little bit more as we go on here. But it's interesting, the idea that these rabbits that this guy was feeding, these wild rabbits, just happened, all 6 of them lined up, laying on their backs, paralyzed, and the next thing he knows, he sees a UFO, an egg-shaped UFO flying around. Now, this book, she has a whole bunch of different cases like this, and horses, chickens, dogs, cats, I mean, everything, the works, even insects it gets into. There was sometimes insects go quiet and don't make any sounds for days in certain cases. It's amazing. Amazing book, amazing compilation of different cases involving animals, and it is something that we really don't talk about. And actually, that's one of the reasons why she put this book together. And actually, there was another case I wanted to bring up here. This is from page 30 of this book. Actually, before I even get into that, I want to. She actually goes through all the different kinds of possible reasons why these animals might be affected the way they are, and why dogs might be scared, why cats become skittish and they act scared, why horses are going crazy while cows are going nuts, chickens are going nuts. I mean, a lot of times that's what happens. It could be from sound. She speculates that it could be from low frequency sound, high frequency sounds that human beings might not be able to hear. Could be from vibrations, the vibrations of these objects. There's a lot of cases where she talks about that. Could be from pressure, the pressure in the air pressure changes. Could be from electromagnetic fields that these objects create. And there could be other reasons that we just have no idea. We might not, maybe it's all done by design. Maybe those rabbits in 1981, maybe the UFO that was hovering around there did so somehow deliberately to knock those rabbits out, or all animals out for some reason. Who knows? But it's something that needs to be studied. We have no idea. That's why I'm bringing this up. I think it's something that does need to be studied. I also thought it was interesting, she actually commented here on, there was a case from that happened in Ithaca, New York in 1967, where some animals were distressed because of this. And J. Allen Hynek at the time had commented that the distress of animals is a strong point. Animals don't hallucinate as humans do. And she also points out that this was interesting. She states also, and this is very important, animal reactions prove that something is happening as opposed to these events simply being the result of overactive imaginations. While we can't say exactly what these animals are experiencing, we can conclude that their reactions are honest, unaffected by media stories about UFOs, not influenced by alcohol or drugs, not influenced by the desire for fame or money, not attempting to create a hoax, not mistaking the planet Venus, stars, etc. They're completely real and genuine, she concludes, and she's absolutely correct. So there's the animals can't be aren't going to be part of a hoax. I mean, I know a lot of debunkers out there don't want to believe this, right? But a lot of these cases involve animals that are acting weird or strange or scared or whatever, or paralyzed, and so there's something actually going on here, and that's what she's pointing out in this book, which I think is really interesting. There was one case that she talks about later on in the book. It happened in Ramona, California on October 15th, 1974, where a round craft was seen that caused numerous animals to react violently. There was some people here that actually witnessed this. Jeannie, Beth, Linda, and Tony Overfelt and Pat Nielsen saw the craft flying over the Santa Maria Valley, and then it appeared to land on a hillside. Slowly, the craft turned ruby red, then intensely white. It rose up, hovered, then traveled at great speed toward them and passed overhead, with the sound being a mix between a hum and a foghorn. And then later on, she states the animal reactions were even more dramatic. It says a NICAP report on the incident stated, horses excitedly whinnied and bucked. One kicked a rail off a fence. One chained dog ran excitedly in and out of its doghouse, sometimes smashing into the back of the doghouse with great force. Another dog grasped the sleeve of a girl and tried to pull her into the house. Goats were reported to be jumping around. Chickens were cackling and scrambling about. A cat ran into the side of a garage, stunning itself. So that's just, again, a little taste of what you'll find in this book. But it's really interesting, like what is going on here. These obviously in a lot of these UFO cases, many UFO cases, there are animals are acting really strange and scared and freaked out, and so obviously something is going on. It's not some hallucination by the human witnesses. The animals were acting scared too. And I could actually attest to this because in my own experience, in 1994, for instance, when I saw a UFO during a nighttime fishing trip, which I bring up a lot of times. Of course, I know there's probably be people out there who are like, "Oh, here we go again." But I just want to point this out for some people who may not have heard this story. But of course, I was fishing at this private lake near Hazleton, Pennsylvania, back in 1994 with my friend Scott, and we were actually fishing in this pond off the lake, and we were night fishing, and we weren't catching anything. And then at some point around 10 o'clock at night, I turned around to get something out of the tackle box, and we were just shore fishing. We were just sitting along the shore of this little pond, and behind me was behind us was this big this open field with tall grass, and on the perimeter was trees and forest. So I turned around to get something out of the tackle box, and I saw this object floating behind the trees. Like I saw these big bright lights behind trees, and it was moving, and it came from behind the trees into a clearing, and then it started moving toward us. And I pointed out to my friend Scott. I said, "Scott, what the hell is that?" And he said, "I don't know." Right, and this thing just completely silent, not making any sound whatsoever. It moved right toward our position. And it was as big as a house. It was only 2.5 stories off the ground, and made no sound whatsoever. And it had these 3 giant headlights on I guess the front of it. And I was standing right in front of it. I was only within 20 feet of this thing, and it was only 2.5 stories off the ground. Scott's shining a flashlight on it on the belly, and right when he did that, I got scared. I said, "Let's get the hell out of there." So we jump in his pickup truck. We throw all the stuff in there. We're driving out of that place, but we had to stop because there was at least 20 deer running away from the direction that this thing just flew. This thing, as we were getting in the truck, it was moving away from us over the trees. And we were driving this dirt road, and the deer were running away from the direction where that thing just flew. So I have to totally agree with Linda Zimmerman that there needs to be scientific investigation, serious scientific investigation. Maybe that's one of the keys to understanding this. Maybe more scientists need to understand actually what's going on with animals here. Well, why are they reacting in strange ways? I mean, how are they becoming paralyzed? I mean, this is an avenue of research that is most certainly needs to be tackled by the scientific community. Unfortunately, of course, a lot of people in the scientific community will stay away from something like this because they'll be afraid of the repercussions they might face from the debunker crowd. I mean, if you're a scientist who says, "Oh, I'm going to start studying animal reactions to UFOs," well, then what might happen is you might get an article put in the newspaper in the New York Post by Stephen Greenstreet who says calls you a crackpot or something like that. That could be one of the concerns. But it is something that needs to be studied for those scientists out there who don't care what anybody thinks. It is something that should be that needs more research, obviously. I mean, this could be a key to understanding what's going on here and what these beings are up to and how are they doing this. Like I said, a lot of the stuff that Linda Zimmerman talks about in her book here, which I highly recommend. Of course, I'll leave a link so you could, if you're interested in it, you could pick it up. It's an awesome compilation of different reports involving animals and UFOs and the reactions by these animals. There's a lot more to it than what I'm talking about here, and it's something that the scientific community needs to take a look at. Anyway, moving on. I want to talk about some of the recent comments I've been receiving from people with regard to some of the recent episodes. For my most recent episode, the White Hot Majestic 12 documents / skeptic group circles UFO wiki pages like vultures, I had received a comment on YouTube from Don't Click the Channel. And Don't Click the Channel says, "Love your take, demeanor, and delivery. I hope you continue to release more content. Just FYI, it's pronounced Northrop." And he's talking about here is North. I guess when I'm talking about Northrop, I'm always calling it Northrop Grumman. Right? It's actually Northrop Grumman. So yeah, I obviously, a lot of the shows I do, I know I mispronounce things sometimes, some of these names, right? And I know I do it a lot with some people's names. I'm certain of that. And but so that's I do try to correct it, and thank you for the correction. If anybody ever hears me pronouncing something wrong, hey, I have no problem. Let me know, and I will make that correction for future. Keep that correction in mind for future reference. So it's not Northrop Grumman. It's Northrop Grumman. And also I received some comments here recently on Spotify. Let's see here. I received a comment actually today from David Richardson. He says he was discussing, I was talking about MJ12 documents, particularly in the previous episode, I was talking about this white hot document that was basically a document that was put together by General Nathan Twining back in 1947 for President Harry Truman, and it was containing all this alleged leaked document that was allegedly real. We don't know. There's no evidence one way or another. I think it's real, but in that document there were some signatures on it, and David asks, have the signatures ever been authenticated? Well, the signatures do jibe with the actual signatures of the people that allegedly signed this document. But see, the issue is it's hard to authenticate some of the signatures because these are facsimiles. Or the documents usually, when they're sent to someone, it's usually on a roll of film where it's a copy, a facsimile. So it's hard to authenticate it that way. But as far as anyone knows, they are the signatures. The actual signatures of the people allegedly involved. Let's see here. Fred says with regard to this, says Stanton Friedman was a believer. If it was a hoax disinformation, then it would have been CIA and their resources and expertise to pull it off. CIA always looking to mix tiny truths in with mostly BS. So what we're talking about here again, it's the MJ12 documents. there's been many leaks of alleged MJ-12 documents over the years. Initially, the briefing memo in 1950 from 1952 to President-elect Eisenhower. That was the first one that was leaked, and then later on, a document, the Cutler Twining memo, was found like a year later, I believe, in the National Archives, and it was actually on the same kind of paper. That was an actual document that actually had that was on the same kind of paper that was used for that time period. So there were things about that paper that I guess, go to show that it could possibly be authentic. And then in the 90s, there were more documents started to get leaked, including the Special Operations Manual, which was leaked to UFO researcher Don Berliner. And then there were a multitude of other documents over the years that have been leaked. It's all, if you go to this website, majesticdocuments.com, I'll leave the link again in the description so you can check it out. There's a lot of different documents. I think that some of those documents are faked because some of them could have been faked. They could have been easily faked. I mean, if someone... these are just like, say, a one-page document, a one-page letter. Some of them could have been faked. I mean, but when you're talking about this white-hot document, which is extremely involved, or something like the Special Operations Manual, it would be extremely difficult to hoax something like that, like those things. It just would be so difficult. I mean, the time and effort and expertise and knowledge involved. I mean, the only people, I think, if they were fake, there would have been, it could have had to be people within the government that have access to other documents and information as to the whereabouts of certain people on certain dates. It just becomes impossible. Like I always talk about, I highly recommend, I mean, anyone who's interested in the Majestic 12 documents should actually check out that website, though. I'll leave the link to it again so you can check it out. It's very, there's so much to it. And also there's this book from Stanton Friedman, Top Secret Magic, which I highly recommend. I actually read this book several times. I really enjoy it. I have to, in a way, if it was, like, I have to agree with Fred here, it would have had, if it was faked, if any of these documents, these documents with a lot of data and information, like the white hot document that I talked about in the previous episode, as well as the Special Operations Manual, that those documents, it would have had to be people on the inside. It couldn't have been just some UFO researcher sitting in his basement. It's too involved. They're just too involved. It becomes impossible when you read these things and you understand. It's just no way. It would have had to been on an inside job. I actually think that those documents I'm talking about here, the Special Operations Manual, the white hot document, as well as the original, the original leaked documents, the briefing memo to Eisenhower. I believe that those were authentic. As for some of the other ones, yeah, maybe, and then some of the other ones, some of them I do think that they were hoaxed. But as for those main ones, those big ones that I'm talking about, I don't think that they were hoaxed, unless it was people within the government. We're probably never going to know, unfortunately. That's the sad part about this. Okay, let's see. Moving on. I wanted to do an update on some of the actual polls that I've conducted recently on Spotify. I wanted to get caught up on those. Okay, for the episode Opinion, Garrett Graff's new UFO book is designed to deceive. I asked this question: have you or do you plan to read Garrett Graff's UFO book? 70 votes so far. 8 people, or 11.4%, say yes, and 62 people, or 88.6%, say no. That's good. I'm glad that's a good high number, because that book's not worth it. It's filled with. It's designed to deceive, just like I said in the title for that episode, because it is designed to deceive. It's incomplete. It offers only one side of the story. Similarly to how this Wikipedia group, these debunkers from that guerrilla skepticism on Wikipedia organization, is altering Wikipedia pages to their liking, and that's really sad. And then I also asked this question. This was for the episode Pentagon Puppet uses Pentagon puppet uses shiny object to distract from concerning Elizondo UFO briefing. I asked this question: should Representative Mike Turner be removed as chairman of the United States House Oversight Committee? 44 votes so far. 3 people, or 6.8%, say no, while 41 people, or 93.2%, say yes. Now, of course, Mike Turner, he is a puppet, as I talked about in that episode. I believe it's very possible that he was trying to distract people, distract the media from. There was at the same day when he comes out with this statement saying that we need to declassify certain kind of information. There's these Russian satellite technology that could prove dangerous. The same, even though it really wasn't, even though it shouldn't have been a concern at this juncture. That was the same day that some people in Congress had met with Lou Elizondo in a closed meeting to talk about UAP, and I think that he might have been taking a preemptive measure to get ahead of that and get everyone else's attention away from that meeting. Now, not everyone agrees with me on this. Fred Bowen actually writes in a comment. He says, it's possible that Turner was creating a distraction, but it could also be a host of other reasons. I don't see a lot of connective tissue with the hypothesis. There have been multiple briefings in UAP. Fred definitely makes a good point there. It doesn't make me right. That's just my feeling on it. So yeah, you could most certainly be right. Maybe there's not a lot of connective tissue with the hypothesis that I presented there, and I could be wrong. Like I always state, just because my opinion doesn't make me right a lot of times. There are only certain things I know I'm right about, right? I know that there's some non-human intelligence here on this planet because I've seen one of these beings. I encountered one of these beings, and I saw one of their crafts, so I know. Right, so that's though. As far as everything else, I'm not sure, right? But I do know that there's something here. There's no question about it, and I know that there is a government cover-up with regard to this as well. There's no question. There's just too much evidence that shows that there is. And then finally, I guess for the most recent episode, the White Hot Majestic 12 document / skeptic group circles UFO wiki pages like vultures. I asked this question. Do you believe the White Hot MJ12 document is authentic? So far, there's been 39 votes. 8 people, or 20.5%, say no. 12 people, or 30.8%, say maybe. And 19 people, or 48.7%, say yes. I think maybe is a reasonable response. I actually, you know what? Any of these could be right. I just personally believe yes. I believe it is authentic for reasons I stated in that episode. It's just that it just becomes. I mean, there's a scientific data in there, and there's the formatting. I mean, of a government documents from that time. It would have taken so much work to try to make something like that, and it just becomes impossible. And as I talked about in the previous episode, I just can't see how it is not authentic. I think that it is. That's just my opinion. Again, it doesn't make me right. And also, I did receive some comments, other comments on this, and I just want to point one of them out here. Yeah, William actually writes, he says this, he just can't figure out if it was for the president, why all the redactions. He's talking about the White Hot document. Now, there was, in that White Hot document that was leaked in the mid-1990s, there was some portions of this document were blacked out. Well, William's making a good point here. If why would there be any redactions? It was a leaked document. Well, maybe the people that were my answer for that is maybe the people who were intended to see that document, because obviously that document was written for the president, but maybe it was later on, maybe some years later, it was going to be used for something else. But some of the information in that document, it wasn't suitable for certain people, and so they blacked some of it out. That could be a reason for it. Maybe there was somebody who did. They talk about how all of this stuff is compartmented. When it comes to the reverse engineering programs, the crash retrieval programs, maybe that the person who that document was given to for a read maybe some years later, I mean, who knows, it could have been, say, 1960, for instance, just throwing this out here as a hypothetical, but certain aspects of that document needed to be blacked out because the person they were going to allow to see that document didn't have the wasn't allowed, didn't have the clearance to read certain sections of it. So that's why it was blacked out, and then later on that same document gets leaked. I'm just saying that could have been the reason. Doesn't make me right. Anyway, I want to say thank you all for joining me. Until next time.